When Michael Bay ushered in a new era of Transformers onto the silver screen in 2007, a number of changes graced the nearly 25-year-old franchise. Transitioning a relatively simple and circular 80s cartoon to a modern-day blockbuster sci-fi action-adventure certainly was not without its challenges, but Transformers was a staple IP by this point, with more than a devoted fan base that had been clamoring for their favorite robotic titans to make the jump to live action ever since the first animated movie in 1986. However, when the day finally came, many OG fans came to be disappointed with the product Bay put in theaters in July of 2007. Despite being a major box office success, grossing over $700 million worldwide off of around a $150 million budget, many hardcore Transformers fans of the franchise let their voices be heard that this iteration was not true to the 80s hit they'd grown up loving. Besides the glaring criticisms like too much focus on the human characters or the seemingly unnecessary and drastic redesigns of numerous iconic characters, what emerged as the largest gripe with what on to be Paramount's 5-movie Bayverse ended up being the characterization of the IP's biggest star, Optimus Prime. The iconic Transformers protagonist and leader of the Autobots surely is one of the most recognizable faces and voices in the entire science fiction genre, deservedly so. When Peter Cullen took the role to start voicing the leader of the heroic band of space robots fighting a distant war on an alien world, there's no way he could have predicted that he was stepping into the rocket that would launch the most iconic performance of his career. Cullen brought a unique identity to this new character and famously credits his military brother with inspiring Prime's personality of a noble leader who was strong enough to be gentle. And the rest was history. Optimus Prime's characterization in the original 80s The Transformers cartoon, more commonly referred to as G1, set the foundation of what would go on to be one of the most iconic and consistent legacies as one of the most recognizable, righteous, and noble leaders in all of pop culture. You could easily argue Optimus Prime is the single greatest leader in all of science fiction, and it would surely be hard to stack up anyone against him, but beyond the normal traits of your standard action heroes, Optimus Prime does truly stand alone. He's shown to be a commander who leads by example, setting the standard for his men as the epitome of heroism, endless displays of courage, honor, selflessness, and most importantly, compassion, even to those who many of his comrades may deem undeserving. Prime's compassion and willingness to spare or see the good in his enemies and their capacity for change is not without pushback from some of his more reactionary soldiers, but Optimus has never compromised his morals. Despite being in a brutal civil war, which was described to have been waged over the course of 7 million years by the point the Autobots first crash land on Earth, Optimus Prime is never corrupted or falls victim to the instigations of his ultimate foe and former brother, Megatron. One of Optimus Prime's foundational pillars revolves around his sentiment that freedom is the right of all sentient beings, which becomes even more clear as the Transformers War makes its way to the planet Earth. Despite the massive losses Prime has sustained to his friends, family, and the possibility of losing his home forever, Prime's resolve is as strong as ever, as continuously throughout the animated series, Prime emphasizes how the humans did not ask for their war, and it was the Autobots' duty to protect Earth now as their adopted home, and the people who inhabit it. While it would surely have been easier to allow the Decepticons to pillage this new, distant, isolated world for their own, allowing the Autobots to return and regain the upper hand on Cybertron, Prime stands his ground, defending the lives of the innocent while continuing to put his own and those of his people on the line. Beyond just the military leader, Optimus is like a father figure to the Autobots and to the humans they take a liking to during their time on Earth. His bravery and inextinguishable optimism against all odds serve as a constant inspiration for his troops, paired with the gallery of iconic speeches we all know and love. Optimus Prime strikes hope, bringing light to the darkest night again and again, finding victory in the face of certain defeat. This all culminates with Optimus Prime displaying the ultimate sacrifice, literally giving his life in a battle to the death with Megatron in the 1986 movie. While both bots escape the battlefield, both ultimately deliver each other a fatal blow, with Megatron left discarded in space as the Autobots gather to mourn their dying leader. Even in his final moments, Prime instills hope, reassuring his friends it would be alright, and that one day a Transformer would rise from their ranks to use the power of the Matrix to bring light to their darkest hour. In the years between 1986 and 2007, there would be a number of Transformers stories told in shows, comics, and more, from things like Beast Wars, Beast Machines, to the Armada and Energon universes. With each year that passed, the limits for CGI imagery continued to advance to places many once thought before to be unattainable. Transformers fans around the world celebrated when at last the first live-action Transformers film was announced on July 23, 2005 during the San Diego Comic-Con. The announcement confirmed that Steven Spielberg would serve as executive producer and that DreamWorks and Paramount Pictures were partnering with Hasbro to bring the iconic franchise to the big screen. Later that same year, Michael Bay was announced as the director in November, with the production kicking off into full gear by 2006. The first teaser trailer hit theaters on June 29, 2006, rolling before the movie Pirates of the Caribbean: Dead Man's Chest. The trailer would go on to become iconic to Bayverse fans, featuring an ominous tease of blurry footage with the Mars rover being intercepted and destroyed by a massive shadowy robotic figure, followed by the iconic Transformers title card. Immediately, fan reception was off the charts, and anticipation for the movie's release in the following year couldn't be any higher. The studio didn't make fans wait too much longer, with the full 2-minute theatrical trailer airing in December of 2006, 8 months before the movie's official release on July 3rd. The trailer set the Transformers fandom on fire in all the right ways, with excitement through the roof from all of the teases and reveals that were shown. Keeping the ominous theme of the first teaser, this trailer featured more dialogue from military personnel with our first true shots of Transformers, albeit in limited capacity. The trailer featured shots of Blackout, Barricade, Bonecrusher, and Scorponok's desert assaults, as well as a tease of Bumblebee's battle mask and the back of the ever-recognizable Optimus Prime. Despite this, there was still so much shrouded in mystery about the main attractions, the Transformers. Looking back, we can wonder, was this a deliberate marketing ploy to generate as much speculation and interest as possible, or did the studio anticipate the possible reactionary backlash this diehard fan base of kids from the 80s might have when they first see Michael Bay's spin on the iconic brand? Maybe the truth was, it was a little bit of both. Regardless, we know the rest was history, with Transformers soaring to massive success at the box office in 2007, amassing over $155 million in the first week alone. The robot blockbuster would go on to amass nearly $710 million on a budget of $150 million. The success of this led to a near immediate greenlighting for a sequel, which Paramount and DreamWorks officially announced plans for in early 2008, less than a year after the film's release. Initially hesitant, Michael Bay was convinced to return after a meeting with Steven Spielberg, who encouraged him to direct the sequel. With this, though, Bay brought his own specific conditions and rules for his role going forward. This included his influence, so Bay demanded a bigger budget and more creative control specifically for himself regarding what would happen in the sequel. He wanted to up the ante with larger scale action sequences, international locations, and more developed CGI. When it came to a commitment for the franchise, Bay became deeply involved in the franchise's direction, working closely with Hasbro and the writers, Alex Kurtzman, Roberto Orci, and Aaron Kruger, to expand the Transformers universe. When it comes to personal passion, Bay described his approach to the series as bringing epic action and spectacle to the big screen, ensuring each film outdid the last in terms of visuals and scale. This vision led to 4 more Transformers films with a bumpy reaction, to say the least, and trajectory for each subsequent installment. Following 2007, the film in 2009 to come out would be the first sequel, being Transformers Revenge of the Fallen, which would earn a worldwide total of $836 million. Despite mixed reviews, the sequel did outperform the first, driven by audience anticipation and expanded international appeal, earning the approval of a third installment to be put into development, which would, of course, be my personal favorite, Transformers Dark of the Moon, releasing in 2011, earning the most impressive $1.123 billion. The third film became the highest grossing in the franchise, breaking the $1 billion mark thanks largely due to an overseas audience that was consistently actually outpacing the domestic audience in growth. Following this came 2014's Age of Extinction, which made only worldwide $1.1 billion, so an actual step down, although not too much, but still not something you want to see studio-wise. While domestic continued to plummet, the film saw massive international success, particularly in China, making it another billion-dollar investment. By this point, critics and the audience alike were not kind on what Bay had chosen to do, not only with the story, but with a number of characters, chief among them the figurehead of the franchise, Optimus Prime. The final Bayverse installment landed in theaters in 2017 with Transformers: The Last Knight to a worldwide total of only $605 million. This turned out to be the lowest grossing of Bay's Transformers films, and honestly was a perfect reflection of the franchise fatigue, with even the die-hard fan base being at the point of apathy for what Transformers had to offer in live action. While it was clear Bay had a passion for putting his vision on the silver screen, it was just as apparent that this fact was also a key detail in why those movies eventually began a downward financial spiral, something still affecting the brand to this day, despite their multiple attempts at soft reboots or spin-offs. Once Bay had leveraged his higher level of creative control after being won over to make a return after the very first installment, Michael Bay alone forced numerous changes into just about every film that would follow. Some for the better, of course, and some definitely for the worse. Some of the most famous changes behind the scenes involving Bay revolve around key plot points, I should say, in the third movie, which this just makes it even funnier because it was the most financially successful, yet it arguably could have been far superior, writing-wise, overall story, whatever you want to call it, if not for some late behind-the-scenes changes, being the firing and complete swapping and rewriting of the character of Megan Fox's Michaela for Rosie Huntington's Carly, and the complete changing of the ending of the movie, where instead of killing Megatron, Optimus would have accepted his offer of truce and a peaceful return to Cybertron. But again, how these changes would have changed the outcome of the movie and the overall future of the franchise is something we'll never truly know. The fact of the matter is, after 5 installments, Michael Bay's Transformers universe had come to an end. Over the course of a decade, Michael Bay was able to tell his version of a story with the iconic 80s toy cartoon characters, capturing a new generation of fans and creating years' worth of discourse for the existing base that had been with the IP since the 80s. And as far as discourse goes, with a fan base as passionate as the Transformers, the conversation will never truly die. As the years went on, and even during the time of their releases, one specific criticism rang louder than the rest, revolving around the Bayverse and one of its characters, specifically none other, of course, than the one and only Optimus Prime. This critique was born following the release of the second movie and stuck with the franchise until it ended with The Last Knight. Many even pointed to it as a core reason for the failure of this universe, that in its prime had hoped to compete with and become a cinematic universe. I laughed at this, thinking back. It hoped to become a cinematic universe on par with industry competitors like Marvel and DC. If you haven't guessed by now, it is the criticism that Michael Bay's Optimus Prime is, in short, an unhinged, bloodlusting psychopath. While some appreciate his portrayal and evolution as a more realistic and battle-hardened leader, many who swear by his origin feel the characterization strays too far from the noble hero depicted in the original continuities. Now, allow me to tell you why this couldn't be further from the truth, and why everyone on this side of the fence and these movies, and specifically regarding this character, could not be further off the mark, and exactly why
Bayverse Optimus Prime is a justified psychopath.
A psychopath is a term used to describe an individual with a specific set of personality traits that include, but are not always exclusive to, the following traits, being a lack of empathy, superficial charm, deceitfulness, impulsivity, lack of remorse, callousness, or grandiosity. Over the course of multiple movies with the Bayverse, there are numerous examples to pull from, but to avoid this video being an entire movie itself, I've decided to go in order, movie by movie, ending with Optimus's final completed arc at the end of Transformers: Dark of the Moon, covering his full evolution and the key moments many point to as the times he went too far or showed his psychopathic tendencies, as well as exactly why I think they have been incorrectly perceived in this way. So, without wasting any more time, let's get right into it. In the opening entry to the franchise, there's nothing much when it comes to controversy in the actions of Prime, apart from some who question his decision-making in the time after Bumblebee's captured by humans and the Autobots first reveal themselves to Sector 7 in defense of Sam. Jazz immediately comes to reason with Prime, urging their leader to immediately jump to action in freeing their captured scout. Prime displays his pragmatism early, responding how it would be impossible to free Bumblebee without causing harm to the humans, and for now, they had no choice but to let them go. Purely based off his tone and short response to Jazz here, we can see this decision is not easy for Prime to make. But by this point, millions of years into conflict, Prime has had to burden his fair share of hard decisions, and in order to preserve the ideals of protecting the innocent, the humans in this case, on top of the fact that they are guests on their world, Prime made the decision most pragmatic as leader. This is reinforced later in the movie as the Autobots gather in a remote area to scan the glasses of Archibald Witwicky for the location of the Allspark. As the Autobots discuss the situation and weigh their options of forward procedure, Jazz again speaks up, asserting that they can't just leave Bumblebee to die and become some human experiment, but Optimus again solemnly maintains that he will die in vain if they do not accomplish their mission of locating the Allspark before the Decepticons, and that Bumblebee is a brave soldier, and that this is what he would want, knowing the risks of their cause. To this, Ironhide jumps in and questions why are they fighting to save the humans, a primitive and violent race. Optimus replies, "Were we so different? They're a young species with much to learn. I have seen goodness in them. Freedom is the right of all sentient beings. You all know there's only one way to end this war. We must destroy the cube." Prime goes on to explain how if all else fails, he would sacrifice himself to protect the safety of the planet, committing to unite the Allspark with his very own spark, destroying both himself and the cube in the process. Prime ends his speech saying how they cannot allow humanity to suffer for their mistakes, the cherry on top to exemplify his mindset. Prime is a seasoned war veteran whose conflict has now sprouted from the destruction of their home world onto the turf of another, and Prime would rather sacrifice his own life, simultaneously risking the future of his own race, all for the preservation of another species who at this point show near unanimous animosity towards them. This speech and approach to the situation is textbook G1 Prime. Throughout the rest of the movie and into the final battle, Prime continues to do justice to his previous iterations, fighting to protect humanity to the very end. When it seems as if Megatron might take the upper hand in battle, Optimus urges Sam to plunge the cube into his chest, willing to take the sacrifice to end it all right there. Sam audibles on his own, thrusting the cube instead into Megatron, killing the leader of the Decepticons by overloading his spark. We see Optimus recover the last shards of the Allspark from the smoldering corpse of Megatron, as he even seems reminiscent and saddened by how this feud was forced to end by his former fallen brother. As the Autobots gather and the smoke fades, they mourn the loss of Jazz, but as the later movies show us, the Allspark fragments alone possess the power to create and reanimate Cybertronian life. Theoretically, the Autobots could have attempted to bring back Jazz with the sliver they recovered, but again, pragmatic as ever, Prime recognizes this as potentially the last hope remaining to again potentially save and continue their race in the future. So instead of using it to bring back one of his closest allies and friends, Jazz, he locks it away for safekeeping, again showing his trust for humans and trusting it with them, holding out hope for the future of their species. Worth noting as well is the reality that Jazz had been lost, and the manner in which he heroically stalled Megatron long enough to allow Prime to get to the battle might be something that also serves as a significant moment impacting the mentality of Optimus moving forward. Jazz was his right-hand man and most trusted soldier, despite also being the smallest. And with that, let's jump into the second movie, where I'll have a lot more on my plate in the realm of defending. In Transformers Revenge of the Fallen, there are numerous moments people point to when claiming this is the biggest divergence from the character of Optimus Prime many had grown familiar with over the decades. Revenge of the Fallen is a movie where we see Optimus at one of the lowest points, literally dying and raising from the grave at one point. So let's dive into it. Starting the movie, we are plunged almost immediately into action, following Nest and a team of Autobots searching a Shanghai residential area for Decepticons in hiding. On the ground, we are introduced to the Nest team led by Lennox and Epps as they receive support from a familiar face in Autobot Ironhide, and newcomers, the RC triplets, the twins, and Sideswipe. As Ironhide and Nest spring Demolisher from his hiding place, the triplets and twins realize that there are two Decepticons there and begin their pursuit of Sideways. Sideswipe is able to catch up, overtake, and completely have Sideways down the middle, eliminating him instantly before he could even retaliate. Nest and Ironhide don't have the same success with Demolisher, as he breaks out into the open roads, leaving a wave of absolute destruction and death in his wake. Demolisher makes little attempt to even address the Autobots or Nest, resorting to causing as much chaos as he can. At this point, Optimus parachutes in after being airlifted over the battle, transforming as he hits the ground to join the pursuit. Prime immediately takes the ideal cutoff route, jumping from a bridge in the path of the rampaging Constructicon and successfully crippling and ending the Decepticons' rampage. As Ironhide and Prime approach the dying and immobilized Decepticon, Prime gives the murderous terrorist the honor of hearing out his final words, before Prime puts him out of his misery with a shot to the head. Now, to me, the only way one could truly take issue with any of Prime's actions here is if you mean to take sympathy with the evil terrorist Decepticon who just went on a murder spree of defenseless humans before proceeding to threaten the protectors of the planet when given the chance to speak final words. If anything, Prime would have been worse leaving the Decepticon to suffer or attempting to save him only for the purposes of torture. After this, the real issues people have with Prime don't really show themselves until the end of the movie, as Prime is nothing but consistent with his movie 1 portrayal and the pinnacle of heroism in the lead up to his death at the culmination of his 1v3 forest battle with Megatron, Grindor, and Starscream. In the second installment, we learn how in the time between the first movie and now, Optimus Prime has committed both his and the overall Autobot forces to the mission of working alongside the US government in coordination with Nest to hunt down the remaining Decepticons and protect humanity. Despite forming trusting bonds with soldiers like Lennox and Epps, Prime still receives heavy criticism and pushback from higher-ups in the national security, specifically people like Theodore Galloway, a senior NSA advisor who believes it's for the good of humanity for the Autobots to leave the planet for good, and that the only reason that the Decepticons are still here is because the Autobots continue to take refuge. In Optimus's conversation with Galloway, we learn that the Autobots have agreed to a classified Alien Autobot Cooperation Act, which the Autobots would be obligated to share all their security information, to which Optimus logically replies how the Autobots have witnessed humanity's capacity for war, and with unbridled access to the Autobots' full knowledge, it would certainly do more harm than good in the hands of humanity. Galloway continues to make the case that the Autobots are the likely targets the Decepticons are remaining on Earth to hunt, and despite all the work the Autobots have done for them, he poses the question of what if humanity no longer granted asylum to the Autobots, and rather, would they want them to leave? Despite all this, Optimus remains composed as ever, asserting they would honor the freedom and the choice of the humans should they decide to expel the Autobots, but he leaves Galloway with an ominous question. What if they leave, and he is wrong? Later on, we see Sam and Optimus meet in a graveyard as Optimus is seeing the tides turning for the worse, with humanity still questioning the Autobots and now having lost the only remaining Allspark shard in their possession after Ravage broke into the Nest compound housing it, with Soundwave having hacked into the satellites, allowing him to locate the shard. Prime meets with Sam, hoping that Sam could serve as the perfect example to remind humanity of the trust they forged over the last few years of combat and collaboration. Prime goes on to explain how he does not want to see Earth share the same fate as Cybertron, with entire generations being lost to the brutality of the Decepticons' warmongering. Prime knows that the Decepticons are on Earth for another reason, even if it isn't presently clear to them. It would be too easy to take his Autobots and leave humanity to crumble under Decepticon oppression. It would mean an ending to the loss of potential life of his own men, and they could be free to return to take the upper hand on their homeworld or begin exploring the stars for a new world to call home. The humans were making it difficult for them anyway. Why did the Autobots have to stay and fight a losing effort to protect those who desire no help from them and are willingly entering brutal wars? Because that is what Optimus Prime stands for. Standing up for those who cannot protect themselves, to defend the right for all sentient life to decide their own future for themselves. The Optimus Prime who does what is right, even if everyone else is telling him he is wrong. Sam fails to see the urgency of the present situation, with his head in another world as he begins his own new stage in life as a college student. Some may think this is a plot hole, as this would also be a great opportunity for Sam to make Optimus aware that he found another Allspark fragment within the tattered remains of his Mission City hoodie earlier in the movie, but we see that once Sam touches the shard, his mind becomes ensnared by its knowledge, planting false memories, symbols, and hallucinations into his mind that trigger at random. Right after this, he gives the shard to Michaela for safekeeping. The effect of the shard impacting him likely is suppressing and manipulating his mind to a degree where Sam would likely have trouble recalling such effects in the moment, and that's all I'll say about that. Once the Decepticons steal the shard, both the humans and the Autobots are in the dark as to their intentions. It is only when US naval ships guarding the trench housing Megatron's remains detect signatures plunging into the depths of the ocean do they begin to suspect that something is amiss. Within moments, a new life signature is activated and rapidly hurling towards the surface, and the leader of the Decepticons is reborn. Megatron, upon his rebirth, immediately travels to the Decepticon hideout in the wreckage of a ship on a moon of Saturn, meeting both Starscream and his master, the Fallen. It is established that Megatron must both secure the boy in order to gain the knowledge to secure the future of their race, and slay the last Prime to finally free Megatronus. With this, Starscream announces that they have the boy in their sights, and the Decepticons, beginning with the human disguised Alice, begin their push on Sam. While the humans are able to kill the female Decepticon by ramming her into a light pole with their car, Sam, Michaela, and Leo are captured by Grindor as they're fleeing the prior scene, with Grindor delivering them to an abandoned factory where Megatron and Starscream lie in wait. Megatron begins his interrogation of Sam, using Decepticon's scalpel to probe Sam's brain to extract the knowledge of the fragment. This accessing of the shard's knowledge likely sent an energy burst of some kind, helping the inbound rescuers B and Prime key in on their location as Megatron continued to delve through the mind of Sam. Here, it's revealed that the Decepticons are after the location of another energy source, or another source of energon hidden on the planet, and for that, they need Sam's brain. Right before they slice into Shia LaBeouf's head, Optimus and Bumblebee arrive just in time to rescue their human allies. Bumblebee forces Starscream to fall back, allowing Michaela and Leo to flee, before Prime knocks both Starscream and Megatron out of the building with devastating blows. As Bumblebee flips around to pick up Leo and Michaela, with Megatron fleeing in the opposite direction, Optimus grabs Sam, and the pair speed off into the woods to escape. Now brings us to the single most important moment in the development of Bayverse Prime's character, and the motivations behind his behavioral shift following this moment. Do I even have to waste any of my time going into detail here? We all know this is one of, if not the most iconic fight sequences in the entire Bayverse, as we witness peak Optimus Prime standing on business. Megatron initiates the ambush, ramming and tackling Prime out of his fleeing vehicle mode, flinging Sam to the side and immediately engaging in some good old fisticuffs. Now let's add some context for what's going through Optimus Prime's head right in this moment. Prime is thrust in a high pressure situation from the jump, operating on extremely limited knowledge with the possibility of the most dire of consequences. The humans surely alerted the Autobots as to what was happening in the ocean, but there was no definitive proof that Megatron himself had risen, while all logical conclusions pointed to that. The Autobots knew they needed to move in defense of Sam, as we know Nest was tracking global Decepticon movements, and with 3 of the most significant Decepticons mobilizing in Sam's general area, the warning signs were clear as day. This helps explain why Optimus and B were able to reach Sam so quickly, as B already was at the school, likely met with Optimus, and the two were able to quickly pinpoint his rough location through the help of the human surveillance and the energy signature likely produced from the accessing of the knowledge of the Allspark during his interrogation. Of course, also, people were definitely reporting a giant helicopter picking up a car and flying, of course, across the harbor. As they fled, and Sam likely briefed Prime as to what just went down in the factory, the truth of the situation would become even more horrifying to Optimus. Not only was Megatron back and in a new body, but it seemed the Decepticon's sole focus was on his closest human ally, Sam Witwicky. Somehow, the knowledge of the cube was passed into Sam, and the Decepticons didn't care what they had to do to get it. Before Prime had a chance to regroup with his fellow Autobots, Megatron caught up with him, and now we're caught up back to where we were. As the fight kicks off, it's still 1v1 between just Megatron and Optimus. Despite Megatron landing the initial blow from behind, transitioning into a tackle, Optimus is able to steady himself first, delivering a massive right hook, before Megatron quickly recovers, spearing Prime once again as he goes for an airborne strike. After they both rise again, Prime quickly becomes the aggressor, likely taking note of Megatron's clumsiness in his new form. While he was born again, Megatron clearly was not fully used to his new proportions, sporting a massive new right arm cannon. Prime bashes Megatron over the top with a gigantic tree, parrying Megatron's return strike and landing a crippling blow to the middle of the Champion of Kaon's back, dodging another wild strike, landing the most powerful blow of all, a right-handed punch sending Megatron forcefully onto his back, all the while insulting his archenemy. Prime's in-battle banter is unusual, but perfectly fitting here considering the circumstances of the present situation, and specifically his opponent and their history. Prime continues to press the matter, now using his swords to continue forcing Megatron into a spiraling retreat, unable to deal any return damage, let alone think to counter. Despite the clear disadvantage he had now found himself in, Megatron played the one card he had up his sleeve, calling out to his Decepticons to join the battle, and with that, enter Grindor and Starscream. Starscream and Grindor drop in, and Starscream immediately launches into pursuit of Sam, with the boy able to avoid the Decepticon with the help of the forested hills and trees for cover. Megatron breaks from his combat with Prime to join Sam's chase, but is quickly intercepted and tackled from the side by Prime, just as Starscream is catching up. Prime proceeds to put on a brief 2v1 masterclass of parrying, while adding in a perfectly timed return shots as Sam continues his attempted escape. Optimus shows off his strength even while surely fatigued, flipping Starscream into the air and delivering a perfect front kick to the face. As Sam flies into the air from the blast wave of Starscream's erratic missile barrage, we transition to seeing the full forces of the Autobots inbound to the battle's location, but still a good bit away. Back to the battle, Megatron begins explaining to Optimus how there's another source of energon on the planet, and Sam can lead them to it, as the Decepticons begin to take the upper hand versus Optimus, with Megatron landing a devastating roundhouse kick, knocking his battle mask from his face. Sam screams out to his friend as the Decepticons continue to lay into the staggering Prime, culminating with Megatron blasting him with a crippling shot from his fusion cannon, launching Optimus nearly the length of a football field, with him landing mere feet from Sam. In this moment, Optimus truly has his back against the wall. He is the one thing standing between Megatron and the fate that would guarantee the end of Earth. Optimus knows Megatron, knowing his desire for conquest and domination was insatiable. He would never stop, stripping this planet to the bone for all its resources before moving on to the next, leaving carnage in its wake. In this moment, as the Decepticons approach the battered Autobot rising from the ground, Megatron asks, "Is the future of our race not worth a single human life?" Without hesitation, rising from the ground, Optimus replies with determination,
"You'll never stop at one.
"I'll take you all on," spinning back and launching at the Decepticons with a newfound burst of energy, fueled equally by heroism and desperation, knowing Megatron must be stopped no matter the cost. Optimus dodged Starscream's first attack while lodging his own sword through his shoulder, spinning with the con to dodge past the incoming Grindor, throwing Starscream back into Megatron while slicing through a handful of Grindor's blades and completely severing his rotor blade equipped arm, sending it flying back into Megatron and completely disrupting what would have been a kill shot on the back of Optimus. Optimus dances between Starscream and Grindor, deflecting and slicing all the while, taking advantage of the Khan's aggression by matching it with his own battle expertise, grappling with the off-balance Starscream and rolling across his back simultaneously, forcing his would-be attack shot to blast directly into his own ally, while positioning himself between the off-balance Starscream and Megatron, allowing him to throw one of his swords directly into the leg of the recovering Grindor, with time to spin back in time to face Megatron, who begins getting his ass handed to him. This is a perfect showcase of just how uneasy Megatron was still in his new body, despite being larger, stronger, and having more weapon upgrades. A wounded Optimus was dealing critical shots to his leg, shoulder, and ending with a massive overhand right, followed by a left forearm, sending Megatron flying back. As Optimus turned to re-engage the other two Decepticons, he immediately caught an incoming strike from Starscream before expertly slicing down and severing his arm before beating him with his own appendage. With Starscream knocked aside, Prime deployed his Energon hook and launched up to the towering 50-foot Grindor. Snaring him right through the side of the head, Prime used his momentum to launch up to his back, using his other hook to pierce the other side of the Decepticon's face, using all his strength to end the Decepticon in a way that would have ensured he would not rise again. Pausing right here, some complain here saying that Optimus is too vicious with this kill, and to that I simply say you need to understand, again, this is a life or death scenario, and while it may be a brutal way to go, for sure, it's a way that Optimus efficiently eliminates the massive threat in one of the quickest ways he knew how to do it. Recovering on the ground, and clearly gassed from the battle, Optimus panics and calls out to Sam, having not seen or heard from him since engaging the three Decepticons. As his optics darted between the trees and across the landscape, Optimus suddenly felt an iron grip clasp him by the shoulder from behind. Megatron struck from behind, impaling and uprooting the Prime from the ground, as Optimus could only flail in desperation. Taunting and calling him weak, Megatron delivered the cleanest kill shot he could ever hope to get, blasting Optimus through the spark with his cannon, finally removing his blade to let the dying Autobot crumble to the earth. As Sam looked on in disbelief, Optimus locked eyes with him, telling him to run as the final light left his optics, and the last Prime was dead. The final thoughts floating through his mind was that of knowing he was a failure. Optimus Prime, the last of the Primes, had failed not only his own race, but now served up humanity on a silver platter to a reborn Megatron and his Decepticon forces. To make an already hellish fate worse, Prime was recently made aware of the Fallen, and despite not knowing the exact origin or meaning of what he first heard it, the combined knowledge of the Decepticons' worldwide searches and the return of Megatron, Prime could only suspect what might be on the horizon for humanity with the Fallen. But, with that, Optimus Prime was dead. Without wasting any time, we can jump all the way to the final battle, where we know Sam was able to successfully prove himself worthy in the eyes of the 13 Primes, or actually I believe it's only like 7 Primes in this continuity, literally dying at the end of Megatron's cannon in an attempt to deliver the Matrix dust to the carcass of Optimus Prime, driven by pure hope and belief that it would work and it would bring Optimus Prime back. Deeming this human worthy to carry the Matrix, the Primes reformed it from its dust form, simultaneously reviving Sam, aided also by his now genetic connection to the supernatural Matrix itself, allowing him to fulfill his mission, bringing life back to the last of the Primes. Jumping purely into the mind of Optimus Prime, he has no idea what has transpired from the moment of his death to his reawakening in the middle of the Egyptian desert. To catch the class up to speed, not including Mr. Prime, the Decepticons, led by the Fallen, have invaded Earth. The Decepticons have made it clear they want Sam and have compromised worldwide surveillance. The energy source the Decepticons are in pursuit of is actually a star harvester, one capable of dooming the entire solar system by draining the energy from the sun itself. Not only was there the uncovering of the Star Harvester, but also the knowledge that the Matrix of Leadership was the legendary key to activating it. Now, back to the moment of Prime's return. To this point, the Fallen knew the location of the Harvester, but he also knew he needed the Matrix of Leadership, something that was hidden specifically from him. While the Decepticons weren't able to get Sam to ascertain the knowledge for themselves, Sam basically did their job for them, finding the Matrix, but Starscream breaks the news to Megatron atop the pyramids that the humans also brought the body of Optimus Prime, so they know Sam's intentions with it. This brings us to the moment Megatron lands the kill shot on Sam as he sprints to the body of Optimus, before the Autobots and humans' firepower forces the Decepticons back for the time being. Funnily enough, Megatron killing Sam is what prompts the Primes to manifest the Matrix's full physical form once again. As Sam plunges the Matrix into Prime's chest, light returns to his optics and the battered warrior coughs to life, gradually rising from the ground. But before they could truly take in the moment, and Prime could even truly bring himself to his feet, the Fallen flew and warped his way in, sending a shockwave across the ground on impact, beheading and impaling humans in his path. He stomped down upon the already ginger Optimus, taking the Matrix that was both the source of Prime's return and the key to Earth's doom. And with that, Megatronus took back off towards the Harvester. While he was alive again, there was no chance that Optimus in this state would ever stand any chance in stopping the Fallen along with Megatron and preventing them from activating the Star Harvester, despite the pleas of his human and Autobot allies. Optimus was crippled. One couldn't even imagine putting themselves back in the mind of this bot right now, whose last memories were of failure and death, and now he's plunged back into the world he had just departed, thrust into the very nightmare scenario he had died dreading. As the Fallen joined the Matrix with his machine, the Star Harvester began humming to life, with the humans springing to action in hopes of protecting their planet, only to be obliterated in the wake of the Fallen's gravitational technology. In this moment, Jetfire stepped forward, declaring his desire to finally make something of his life, sacrificing his spark and body to enhance Optimus, giving him a chance to save the planet. With that, Optimus looked on as the legendary Seeker ripped out his own spark, clearing way for Ratchet and Jolt to facilitate Optimus's greatest transformation yet. As Jolt connects to both Optimus and Jetfire, Optimus gains an entire chassis upgrade, with afterburners granting him the addition of flight. But something that's not initially visibly apparent is the rejuvenation Prime receives from absorbing the remainder of Jetfire's spark. This is more than enough to get him back in the fight, but knowing what we know about their life force, sparks, and technology's aptitude for the transfer of memories and knowledge, it would not be far-fetched to believe that in transferring between Jetfire and Prime in the way that they did, with such a direct sacrifice and upgrade from one life to another, it's not totally unreasonable to think that Prime gained some knowledge from this transfer as well. Something as simple as the insight Jetfire possessed of who truly the Fallen was, and the depth of his destructive capabilities and intentions of pure genocide, with no regard for any life. This was an evil that needed to be ended. With the transfer complete and Optimus ready to roll, he took off, soaring towards the pyramid. As the Fallen and Megatron continued their attempts to deflect the incoming fire from the grounded human tanks and now aerial jet strikes, Optimus took advantage of the gravitational barrier the Fallen had surrounding the entire pyramid to mask his approach, speeding in so fast the Fallen only had time to brace for his own impact as Prime tackled him straight through the air off the pyramid top, turning back midair to launch a single but ultimately catastrophic shot to the Star Harvester, instantly nullifying the machine, leaving the duo tumbling down the side of the pyramid, crashing into the ruins below. With Megatron falling to the adjacent side, Optimus and the Fallen were left alone to begin their fight, with the Fallen immediately taunting Prime, telling him to die like his brothers, to which Optimus replies, telling him how they were his brothers too. In his continued disregard for not only the lives of the innocent humans, but for his own brothers, the Fallen continues to showcase not only his ruthlessness, but his complete psychopathic tendencies as a true blight to the universe. As they continue to fight, Megatron re-emerges, attempting to jump on Prime from behind, with Optimus responding by launching back with his new thrusters. At the same time, blasting the Fallen through the support pillars of another structure as Prime turns back to focus solely on Megatron. As the two grapple, Optimus quickly takes control of the fight, snapping Megatron's arm blade clean off, proceeding to use the Decepticon leader's own arm cannon to blast a chunk out of his own head, before fully severing his arm and using his thrusters to send the Decepticon leader flying back through the air and through another enclosed structure, leaving him to call out for his second in command. As Optimus turned back to re-engage the Fallen, Megatron has hurled bits of debris at the closing Prime, which Optimus skillfully dodged and sliced through before firing a few shots while closing the distance and managing to clip the ancient Decepticon's nose with a thrust of his own Energon sword. Unlike the clumsy Megatron 2.0, the Fallen was quick with his counter, twisting and hitting back at the Prime's outstretched arm, pinning his head back with one hand as he ripped a chunk of thrusters off Prime's back with the other before flinging it back at him with decent effect. Like Megatronus, Prime was quick to shake this attack off as well, with Prime quickly regaining his composure in time to catch the oncoming strike of the Fallen's staff, telling him he picked the wrong planet, while taking advantage of this more grounded position while countering the Fallen's attack, allowing him to reverse the staff, taking control and thrusting it instead through the Fallen's chest from behind, bending the stick back and pulling it upwards as he utters the words that would forever be the silver bullet for all who criticize this portrayal. "Give me your face," as he rips upward the severed staff and along with it the armored layer of Megatronus' faceplate. As the Fallen stumbles into an open doorway, Optimus plunges his fist through his chest from behind, shattering his spark entirely. And as the Fallen's body slumps to the ground, Prime says, "I rise, you fall," as Megatron and Starscream can only look on in disbelief before fleeing the scene. With that, humanity and the Autobots win the day, as what remains of the Decepticons can only crawl back into hiding. While in the moment with this battle, I wholeheartedly admit Optimus may have seemed a little bit over the top with his anger, I would argue that his anger is 100% fully justified in the moment, and even then, he set out with a specific goal, and he 100% accomplished it in his complete elimination of the Fallen. If you are really going to be mad at this character for saying "give me your face" to this generationally evil opponent after everything this specific character of Optimus Prime has gone through in this movie alone, then by this point in the video, I'm probably not going to convince you. The key point we have to remember above all is that as great as the G1 depiction was, it is horribly unrealistic, with both leaders being inefficient at best and both having numerous opportunities to end each other and get on with their greater mission, But again, G1 is not set out to be this realistic depiction of a war show, or even something akin to like a more modern Clone Wars type of show. More so, it's like two groups of kids constantly fighting each day at recess before the board is cleared and everyone resets for the next day. That is another reason why I find holding any of these live-action characters to the standards of their G1 representations to be, simply put, unrealistic and asking to be let down. To emphasize it once again, this is a Transformer who literally just died and came back from the grave, thrown back into a life, and immediately being asked to put his life on the line once again, jumping up and once again saving the day. So if you're going to hold a couple of voice lines against him as he's wiping the greatest threat of evil in the universe out in this present moment, then so be it. To cap off Revenge of the Fallen, we see that Optimus is still optimistic as ever, looking to the future, giving his gratitude to Sam for saving his life, before launching into one of his ever-iconic speeches, specifically noting their race's united history and talking about the history that they shall face together forward, forging a new future. And with that, we wrap up the second installation to the Transformers franchise, moving into the final movie I will be covering, my personal favorite Bayverse installment, Transformers: Dark of the Moon. There are certainly multiple key points here to call into question with Prime, all revolving around his decision-making. This movie starts unlike the previous two in that it throws us directly onto Cybertron back in the peak of the Autobot-Decepticon Civil War, as Optimus states that they were once a peaceful race of intelligent mechanical beings. But then came the war between the Autobots who fought for freedom and the Decepticons who dreamt of tyranny. Overmatched and outnumbered, our defeat was all but certain. But in the war's final days, one Autobot ship escaped the battle. It was carrying a secret cargo that would have changed our planet's fate. A desperate mission, our final hope. A hope that vanished. This is, as we see, that an Autobot ship that we later know to be as the Ark, and its cargo being Sentinel with his space bridge pillar technology, capable of transporting matter across space and time. As the Decepticon missiles collide with the fleeing Autobot ship and it drifts uncontrolled into the cosmos, we transition to Earth in 1961, where NASA picks up the Ark's crash impact on the moon. The next sequence reveals that the entire US space race was a plan devised around rushing to the crash site, and everything since has been part of a cover-up hiding what the Apollo astronauts found on their voyage. With this, it becomes apparent that there is even more humanity has been hiding from the Autobots in relation to their experience and knowledge of the Transformers. When next we hear from Optimus, he explains how in the years since they've touched down on Earth, energon detectors now guard the cities, while long-range defense systems guard the skies. Since Decepticon activity has gone practically dormant, the Autobots have taken to lending their services to protect humanity, deploying worldwide to assist in handling human conflicts, to prevent mankind from bringing harm to itself. While they work these worldwide missions, they search for signs of their true enemy's return. We pick up with Optimus, who's chief among a team operating with Lennox, investigating the ruins of a nuclear facility, Chernobyl. They are there after being tipped off by Vashkod, a Ukrainian government official who alerted them about potential alien discovery at the decommissioned nuclear facility. During the mission, they discover an alien device with Soviet space program markings, which Optimus Prime later identifies as an engine part from the long-lost Autobot ship, the Ark. While investigating, they are suddenly attacked by Shockwave and his pet creature known as the Driller, who attempts to retrieve the alien artifact. Optimus immediately springs to action, driving parallel to the rampaging Driller, who's moving through the factory besides him, before the Driller cuts in front of his path, knocking Prime and his trailer apart as they both transform, falling through the air. With the humans catching up to the scene, Prime grabs his Energon sword, now handheld versus the previous arm-mounted ones, and a new Cybertronian shield, likely derived from the refinements on his Jetfire upgrade, similar to how he's made it mobile via his trailer. As the Driller's tendrils pierce the ground and attack the humans and Prime alike, Optimus shows off his athleticism by diving across and cutting the arm that had grabbed the Cybertronian engine piece from the facility, as the Driller's owner finally shows his face, with Shockwave rising to the surface, calling out to Optimus. As Optimus turns to face him, readying his armaments and roaring triumphantly, Shockwave and his pet flee into the underground tunnels, leaving Optimus and Nest to examine the engine part they had apparently been fighting so hard to claim. As soon as Prime gets a real chance to examine the object alongside Lennox, he's blown away, saying only, "It's impossible," as he kneels to get a better look. Continuing to Lennox, he explains how it's an engine part from a long-lost Autobot ship. It is here Optimus realizes the humans have been hiding things from their Autobot allies. At the same moment, the fleeing Vashgod is finally intercepted by Laserbeak, who had been overseeing the entire operation, knowing the Russian asset was on the path to selling out his connections to the Decepticons, but Soundwave's cassette made sure Nest would learn no more from him. When we next pick up with the Autobots, they are returning to the Nest HQ and going off to their designated workstations as Director of National Intelligence Charlotte Meering makes her entrance, pressing Lennox for information regarding the joint ops missions between the humans and the bots. As Lennox and Meering continue through the hangar past Autobots conversing amongst themselves and training with other humans, the team's inventor Q steps forward, remarking how he's never seen Optimus so upset, with hope that the humans can provide for him some reassuring enlightenment. We then see Optimus, frozen in place, refusing to transform in all interaction. As Dino steps back to give room for the approaching Ironhide, he warned the humans Optimus was in a bad mood, and that he hadn't even spoken to any of the Autobots that day. Meering asks if this is some sort of silent treatment, but Ironhide and Q affirm that they've seen this before, and this is not that. This is worse. Then, being one of the few close enough to the last Prime to be able to pull this stunt, Ironhide chastises his old friend, barking out, "Prime, make something of yourself," adding a light tap to the roof of his truck, finally sparking Optimus into motion, with Ironhide immediately stepping back and adding, "He's pissed." Optimus transforms, forcefully slamming his hands forward as he leans into the face of Meering, understandably frustrated, saying, "You lied to us. Everything humans know of our planet we were told all had been shared. So why has this been found in human possession?" Meering insists that they were in the dark with this as well. Take that with a grain of salt, of course. At least Bay portrayed the CIA in a realistic manner in these movies, but saying how this was a secret that few men knew and fewer still remain alive, before introducing two of NASA's founding mission directors and astronaut Buzz Aldrin. The NASA members go on to explain their mission discovering the Ark after its initial crash in the 60s, detailing how the Russians had also managed to land on the moon, but only an unmanned probe, which they speculate captured the engine part they later believed to have mastered, resulting in the Chernobyl disaster. While the NASA reps explained how they collected numerous photos and surface samples, Ironhide interjects, asking if they had ever searched the crash vaults, being met with silence. Optimus finally steps in, explaining the origin of the Ark and its contents, most importantly its captain, the great Sentinel Prime, inventor of the technology that could turn the tide of the war and the commander of the Autobots before Optimus Prime. In this moment, Prime makes it known that they must journey to the ship immediately to search the vaults before the Decepticons learn of its location. They waste no time, with Optimus and Ratchet immediately piloting the Autobot spacecraft, Xanthium, to the crash site location on the moon, and slicing through the ancient ship's hull. Once inside the ship's main room, Optimus hits the activation to open the crash vault, revealing the body of Sentinel Prime, locked away with 5 pillars to protect them. Ratchet reveals that he actually still has a life signal, although it is faint, and Optimus collects his old friend, ready to take him home. As the humans prepare to make contact, as they put it, with Sentinel, Meering speaks to some other government officials, remarking how Sentinel was considered the Einstein of his generation. She decides to lock the 5 recovered pillars in a massive vault for now, saying they first need to know what they're dealing with. As the humans and Autobots alike gather around Sentinel's rising gurney, Optimus slowly approaches, delicately allowing the Matrix of Leadership to float free from his spark chamber. With the former cube shards destabilized or destroyed, the Matrix was the one tool at the Autobots' disposal capable of bringing a Cybertronian back to life, or in this case, bring Sentinel back from the edge. With that, Optimus spoke, "Sentinel Prime, we bid you return," and allowed the Matrix to jumpstart the old Autobot commander, sending him into a state of immediate shock, with the veteran springing forward, tackling Prime and bringing his sword to his head, with Optimus desperately trying to reassure the panicking bot. As the other Autobots stepped forward to reveal themselves and Ratchet echoed Prime's words of reassurance, Sentinel took a step back, taking in his new alien surroundings. His mind, understandably racing, Sentinel blurted out, questioning the status of the war, to which Optimus could only solemnly inform him the war was lost, and Cybertron remained nothing but a barren wasteland, with humanity becoming their ally and allowing them to take shelter on Earth. Jumping to the next topic without acknowledgement, Sentinel questioned what happened to his ship, remembering they had come upon fire just before his memory went out. A mixed look of panic and focus crossed his face as he stepped towards Optimus, questioning, "Where are the pillars?" Optimus replies how he saved 5 of them, including the control pillar, much to the displeasure of Sentinel, announcing they once had hundreds. Meering takes this opportunity to interject, asking the purpose of the pillars, to which Sentinel explains they have the ability to reshape the universe, together forming a space bridge, transporting matter through space and time, only operable by Sentinel himself. Meering presses that he's talking about some kind of teleportation device, to which Optimus answers, yes, for resources and refugees. Meering is immediately alarmed, reading the possibility for this to be used to usher in invading armies, bombs, weapons, etc., and how they'd have to get approval from humans to even consider such actions first. Sentinel replies, clearly not taking a liking to her tone, by insisting that the most important issue is making sure that the Decepticons do not learn of the Pillar's presence on Earth, for it would spell the end of their planet as they knew it. As some time passes and Sam tries to return back to his life, rejected by Meering, we pick back up with Optimus and Sentinel as they travel the world, appreciating the beauty of Earth. As the old friends stop to gaze upon the skyline, Sentinel remarks how majestic and peaceful Earth is, unlike the final days of Cybertron. Optimus solemnly replies, wondering what might have been if Sentinel had fought the final battle instead of Optimus. Sentinel dismisses the notion, affirming that if not for Prime, their race would not have survived, and not to mourn the past. In this moment, Optimus bows down to a knee, releasing the Matrix again from his chamber, offering it to Sentinel as their former leader, expressing how that right still belonged to him. Sentinel examined the Matrix for a moment, floating it between the palm of his hand, clearly in careful consideration, before replying how this is a world he did not know, and that he's no longer the teacher, rather, now Optimus is his, returning the Matrix to him. At this point, Optimus likely feels like the most optimistic he ever has during his time spent on Earth. The Decepticons are almost a non-factor, hiding out without the numbers or bravery to risk even the smallest of incursions on human territory. Despite occasional difficulties with higher-ups, the Autobots and the military have formed a close and efficient partnership to the point where the Autobots are now helping to maintain peace on a global scale, dealing with interhuman relations. His Autobot team continues to grow, and now the greatest discovery of all, Sentinel Prime was not lost, nor his technology along with him. Not only did Prime have one of his closest friends and mentors back at his side, but his teacher now looked to him to guide them forward on their new planet. To add even more optimism, if Sentinel could track down or pick work back up on his existing pillars, there was the possibility of searching the stars for more of their brothers and necessary resources that could possibly set them back on the path to replenishing their dead world, avoiding the evils of pillaging sentient planets in the process. While this is happening, Sam and Simmons are busy uncovering the truth behind the space missions of the past, and they uncover a terrifying reality. The Decepticons already had their hands deep in the secret, and they knew exactly what lied in wait all these years on the dark side of the moon. The Decepticons had actually already been to the crash site, raiding it before even Apollo got there, collecting the rest of the missing space bridge pillars and being photographed by the Russian unmanned probes. Sam wonders why the Decepticons would collect the pillars, but leave behind the one bot that could use them in Sentinel. In this moment it clicks, or so they think, realizing the Decepticons had played them into reviving Sentinel for them, and all they had to do was wait. Immediately, he alerted Nest and the other Autobots as they pick up Sentinel and begin escorting him back to the Nest headquarters. With that, the chase is on, with Crankcase, Crowbar, and Hatchet intercepting the Autobots on the highway and engaging with Beast, Sideswipe, and Mirage in their pursuit of Sentinel. As they near the HQ, Ironhide races out to meet the pursuing cons head-on, staying back with Sideswipe to finish the job as the rest of the group safely made its nest. As Sam coordinates with Lennox in the parking lot, Ironhide and the rest of the convoy form up behind Sentinel. Lennox tells Sam that he has his whole team deployed in the area monitoring for more Decepticons as he turns back to Ironhide, ordering him to protect Sentinel and personally make sure he gets locked up inside, to which Ironhide confirms, "Consider it done." Sam continues, reinforcing, "You have to guard Sentinel, because he's the key to the whole thing." The shot cuts to Sentinel, transformed and slowly rising, facing away from the group as he begins to speak, affirming, "Indeed I am. What you must realize, my Autobot brothers, is we were never going to win the war." Sam and Lennox looked up immediately alarmed by Sentinel's words, with the rest of the Autobots still on their toes monitoring their surroundings, not yet fully processing what they were hearing. He continued, "For the sake of our planet's survival, a deal had to be made with Megatron." And before any Autobot had the time to process and react to Sentinel's admittance of betrayal, He turned and blasted Ironhide through the back of the chest and shoulder with his cosmic rust cannon, a weapon considered a war crime when used on Cybertron for the way its acid melts the victim alive. The Autobot veteran wheezed in shock, the acid slowly working its way throughout his body in horrifying fashion. He turned, looking to Sentinel asking, "What have you done?" To which Sentinel coldly responded, "I hereby discharge you from duty," before delivering a final shot to the center of his chest, sending pieces of his body flying and sending the stunned Bumblebee sprawling backwards. The remaining corpse of Ironhide continued to slowly and painfully decay at the feet of Sentinel as he laid waste to the area around him. As the humans and Autobots fled the turncoat, Sentinel began firing upon B as well, who quickly took cover while attempting to return fire before making it over the wall and fleeing the area. As Lennox and Sam fled inside, Sentinel proceeded to lay waste to the Nest facility, taking back the 5 pillars and taking his leave. Shortly after, Optimus arrives on the scene and is left to bask in the utter destruction and loss of life before him. Meering shows no sympathy, telling Optimus, "Take a look," and that it's all on him. In this moment, Optimus has gone through a devastating mood swing, from pure elation and optimism to utter shock, disbelief, and pure grief. Not only had his recently returned mentor completely stabbed him in the back, but he had murdered now one of his closest friends in the most despicable of ways. He didn't have time to mourn now. He had to find Sentinel, to find out why he committed this betrayal, and to stop his collusion with Megatron. Some hours later, we see Sentinel Prime, Megatron, and Starscream around the area of the Lincoln Memorial and Reflecting Pool. Optimus arrives on the scene, reaching the pool and pleading for Sentinel to stop, but Sentinel can only ask for forgiveness as he activates the transportation pillars, bringing to life a short-distance space bridge to the moon, where a Decepticon invasion force lay dormant in the dusty surface, ready for this very moment. The still damaged Megatron sat back upon Lincoln's chair himself, watching his greatest triumph come to life, goading, "Here we are, fight us now," as the Decepticons poured through the space bridge, taking Earth modes and scattering into the city. As Nest and some Autobots attempted to engage the raging invasion force fleeing the scene, Optimus made a beeline for Sentinel, dodging even more shots from his cosmic rust cannon as Optimus ultimately was forced to order a full retreat for his men, continuing his solo pursuit of Sentinel. Optimus was able to gain enough ground on Sentinel to launch into a tackle, but upon breaking apart on the ground, Sentinel was able to get to his feet with more speed, pinning Optimus back as they continued to wrestle. Sentinel was able to get his Primax blade to the side of Optimus's head, while Optimus begged to know, "Why would you do this, Sentinel?" While Sentinel could only reply, "For Cybertron, for our home. What war destroyed, we can rebuild, but only if we join with the Decepticons." In this moment, it becomes clear that Sentinel is not the same bot Optimus had once learned under. He would still try to reason with him, standing firm in his belief in dispelling the ideas of Sentinel that taking the ideology of the enemy was not the only way, and that Earth is their home. They must defend humanity. Sentinel doubles down on his complete loss of touch with the way of the Autobots, calling Optimus the one who was lost, saying how on Cybertron they were gods, to let the humans serve them or perish. With that, he removed his Primax from his throat, telling Optimus he was lucky he didn't kill him, and that in time, he would see, leaving the scene with Optimus slowly rising and telling him this was not over. At this point, Sentinel's just as good as Megatron, making it clear he has no regard for the human lives, or upholding anything to their standards of defending the sentient. He had ushered in an invasion force of approximately 200 Decepticons, practically handing over the keys to Earth. The next step of their master plan would ensure the removal of any potential resistance. After the reveal of Carly's boss working for the Decepticons, and her car being Soundwave, successfully capturing her and setting up Sam with a listening device to learn of Optimus Prime's true plans, we cut back to the military breaking down the situation. On top of the hundreds of rogue Decepticons now on Earth, Energon detectors were triggering from multiple continents as far away as South America and China already. Then, the UN receives an encrypted audio file supposedly from the leader of the Autobots. The message is from Sentinel, stating, "Defenders of Earth, we have come for your natural resources to rebuild our damaged planet. When we have transported all we need, we will leave your world in peace. For such peace to exist, you must immediately exile the Autobot rebels you have harbored. Non-negotiable. Renounce the rebels. We await your reply." Against all better reason, the Capitol somehow passes legislation officially exiling the Autobots from US soil, terminating their military alliance. As the news breaks, Sam pleads with Mirroring to no avail. She completely dismisses all of the previous efforts the Autobots have done for in saving humanity by saying, "Look where it's got us now," justifying their expulsion due to the fact that there's been an enemy invasion. Humanity is plain stupid here. They're literally willing to hand over their freedom completely to hostile Cybertronians, chief among them a turncoat who's made Megatron his second in command. Truly here, it is as if humanity is asking to be conquered. This is literally the same Megatron who, the previous two movies, there's not really even much to go on explaining here. But in the last movie, Megatron makes it very clear he doesn't give a damn about a single human life. Let them serve us. Let them be our slaves. And yet, humanity says, you know what? Let's listen to these guys. We're going to take them at their word. Optimus Prime knows the Decepticons would never truly leave Earth in peace, but his words now fell on deaf ears, with humanity deciding the Autobots must leave, and Prime, as he promised in the previous movie, would honor the freedom of the humans to make this decision despite it being against his better judgment. He would honor it. Prime leads the Autobots to the Xanthium, stopping to speak to Sam himself. Here, Prime places the blame fully on himself, saying it was him who told humanity he could trust Sentinel. "I was so wrong," he concludes solemnly to Sam, to which Sam says, "That doesn't make you wrong, it just makes you human." It's amazing that here, in a conversation Sam isn't even fully engaged with, as he's still dealing with the pain and pressure of the Decepticon watch on his wrist, Sam can still emphasize and logically analyze the situation, obviously seeing that Optimus is not the one to blame in the situation. Was he possibly a bit too caught up in the moment of positivity upon finding Sentinel and once again entertaining the idea that his race and homeworld were in fact possibly not doomed? Of course, but he never himself did anything to jeopardize humanity or their multi-year-long partnership. The humans were all in for helping the Autobots uncover the mystery once they found the Ark's engine part in the beginning of the movie, and why would they have any reason to suspect the former leader and Einstein of the good guys would have plotted a mutiny thousands of years in the past before his plan could finally unfurl upon his resurrection in the present? Optimus was regretful for unleashing this beast, something that's result couldn't possibly have been further from all logical predictions. Now, in one of the most dire situations of their time, they were casting out the only aliens that had ever committed their efforts and laid down their lives for upholding the peace and freedom of humanity, rather than like their brethren who had only ever sought subjugation and destruction. Again, plain, stupid humans. Optimus concludes, "Remember this, you may lose your faith in us, but never lose it in yourselves," demonstrating how even after all of this, even after the humans were kicking them to the curb, Optimus held none of this against them, and he only seeks to honor their wish, as he regretfully thinks of himself as a failure. Needing to press Prime on the truth, for if they had a hidden plan to fight back or remain on Earth, Sam pleads how he knows there must be some strategy to fight back, to which Optimus replies, "There is no plan." Sam asks how if they just oblige the Decepticons, how they're going to live with themselves, to which Optimus bends down, asserting, "You're my friend, Sam. You always will be. But your leaders have spoken. From here, the fight will be your own," as he turns to join the rest of the Autobots as they prep their exit. As the Autobots are set to take off, the Decepticon watch detaches, satisfied knowing the Autobots apparently had no plan, as Sam and the humans watched on in horror as the Xanthium barely reached the upper atmosphere before being met with a devastating blast from the awaiting Starscream, incinerating the spacecraft, leaving only pieces to smolder aflame back down to Earth. Now, let's pause it right here, because obviously we know the Autobots are not dead. They stashed themselves away in one of the first boosters to detach once the spacecraft launched. Now, again, let's put this all in perspective. Starscream shot the Xanthium, obviously causing a lot more commotion than what the Autobots at first expected, as they expected to get up into the upper atmosphere before the Earth mode shuttle were to detach from the Xanthium, and then they could drift back into Earth's atmosphere, likely steering themselves right where they wanted to go, or having some kind of better judgment on what was going to happen. And with Starscream blasting them, they were likely shot spiraling off hundreds, if not thousands of miles off course, probably landing in the middle of the ocean. So keep that in mind as I continue to defend what is going to turn out to be another large criticism of Bayverse. That is, of course, as we know, the Decepticons go on after this point to pillage and ransack Chicago, completely activating their invasion of Earth. Many people lose their mind here saying, Optimus Prime knew this was going to happen. He allowed for this to happen. Optimus Prime just wanted to make an example and let thousands, if not millions of humans die just to make an example. And I totally disagree with that. I would say, again, keep in mind that Starscream really messed up the whole idea of just falling apart from the booster, falling back down to Earth, and probably very quickly getting back onto land, establishing themselves, and making sure an event like Chicago could not be fully on set. But of course, with Starscream's interference and a lot more going wrong, and them probably being stranded in the middle of the ocean and not having any Transformers that could fly themselves over unless Optimus was using his jetpack to pick up Autobots one by one going back and forth. Go ahead and picture that. But the Autobots got to Chicago as fast as they could. They got to Chicago and immediately saved Sam and Epps and the rest of his humans before they were able to get killed by the Decepticon drones. But Optimus is infuriated that this was allowed to happen, and his plan the entire time was to not allow this to happen. Again, his plan was to hide in the booster and come back immediately because he knew the Decepticons were going to do something. Again, this is a smart strategy for a realistic depiction of a multi-million-year war veteran leader. Optimus Prime is thinking, I'm not going to push back and fight with the humans because that's going to make these people who want to kick us out even more antagonistic against us, and that may make it even worse because then they're going to side with the evil guys. Keep in mind, the evil guys who've openly tried to take over and subjugate them in the past. So the humans are being plain stupid here, but Optimus is just saying, I'm going to make them think it is what it is. I'm going to honor their wishes and we'll leave. But I know they're going to get fucked up and obliterated the second I get up out of here. So we're not getting out of here. We're coming back immediately. But then they get blasted off course. So it really does confuse me how people still decide to hold this against them, because Optimus does talk about how immediately when he shows up to Sam, his exact words are, your leaders will now understand the Decepticons will never leave your planet alone, and we needed them to believe we had gone. That's literally all he says. Then he says, today, in the name of freedom, we're taking the battle to them. And again, some people complain because when Optimus first shows up, he says, we're going to kill them all. But again, what is the problem with this? What is the problem with this? This is not making Optimus evil. This isn't making him vicious or over the line. He's vowing to cleanse the Decepticons from Earth, who they are literally in the process of enslaving, subjugating, and conquering. I don't understand people's problem with this. And like I just read out, Optimus is just stating a fact. Your leaders needed to see that this was going to happen because they weren't going to believe me. That's not saying I wanted this to happen and I allowed this to happen, because I just went over, he tried to come back right away. So again, that is what I would say on that point of people who lose their minds saying, Optimus is a psycho, he's so cold, he's callous, he let thousands of humans die just to prove a point. He wasn't proving a point. He was honoring the humans and he had a plan to save them, but again, got ramrodded by Starscream in the process. Jumping back into the moment of the Autobots' return, the Wreckers explain how their plan to hide away in the rocket had indeed worked in keeping them safe and allowing them to crash back down into the Atlantic. Him confirming this also further explains why it took them the time that it did to make it back to Chicago all the way from the Atlantic Ocean. As the Autobots form up and emphasize their willingness to step back up to the defense of humanity, Optimus formulates a plan, recognizing how the Decepticons have sealed off the city and emphasizing the importance of taking advantage of their current status of Sentinel, Megatron, and the larger Decepticon forces, still not realizing they had indeed survived. Sam and B take the unmanned Decepticon spaceship, intending to covertly infiltrate Trump Tower, where Carly was being held, across from where Sentinel manned the control pillar atop the building, as the rest of the Autobots along with Epps began moving up through the streets. Sam and Bumblebee are able to free Carly and kill Laserbeak, albeit crashing down to the city streets and allowing Dylan to run out and alert Megatron that the Autobots were indeed alive. And here, triggering the Decepticons to steepen their lockdown, raising the city bridges. With the cover blown, Optimus and the Autobots rush in to cover Sam, Carly, and Bee, forming up with Epps' militia as the humans uncover a Nest UAV drone that had gotten shot down earlier in the Purge. They're able to get it working and communicate as much info as they can about Sentinel's location and his goal to bring Cybertron to Earth using the pillars. Knowing they now have a way to fight back, Lennox begins mobilizing the Nest forces. We cut back to Optimus, telling Sam they need to get to cover before the fighters spot them, and to hold back in hiding while he and Sideswipe with the rest of the Autobots scout a route ahead. Epps, Sam, and the men converse about the possibility of using their rocket launcher to disrupt the control pillar when one man points out a perfectly adjacent building that would allow them to get to a high enough ground to get off a decent shot. As the humans continue their plan in hiding, the Autobots launch a full frontal assault on the Decepticons' location, surging down the central avenue, only to be interrupted from the rear by the Driller bot once again as he bursts through the underground tunnels. The Driller is able to dislodge Optimus' trailer, forcing the Prime to abandon his weapon upgrades behind him in the streets as the Driller plants himself and Shockwave emerges from within. The Autobots immediately ducked off the streets and into cover, understanding that an open fight with the Driller would all but guarantee death, being easy pickings for the aerial ships. Optimus stressed the urgency of getting back to his trailer to access his flight tech, and how Shockwave couldn't hunt all of them at once, asking the Wreckers to create a diversion, to which they happily obliged. Epps informed the Autobots of their plan to climb the tower to take down the control pillar with their rocket, asking the Autobots to draw their fire. Before they can head out, Q stops them, handing over his new urban combat prototypes in hopes of assisting the humans on their mission, while only having a brief moment to try to explain their usages, deeming them great inventions for kicking ass. With that, the humans and bots flooded out of the building as the Decepticons were just beginning to close in on their location, with the humans splitting off one way and the Wreckers in the other, with the Autobots providing a line of cover fire. The Wreckers peeled back out onto the central Ave, raining a barrage of bullets into the hulking Shockwave, who raised his massive shield for cover. Before the humans are able to get a shot off on the pillar, the instability of the building causes rubble to fall, alerting Shockwave, who instantly identifies them as a target to be eliminated, beckoning the Driller to finish off the already weakened skyscraper. The Driller wreaks havoc on the building, causing it to capsize halfway, crashing into a parallel rooftop, as Sam, Epps, and the team are able to grapple to the next building to safety. In this moment, it appears as if the Driller keys in on them and is about to deliver a fatal attack, but in comes the last of the true Primes, soaring through the sky, having time to gear up in his trailer. Prime quickly attacks the Driller, drawing its attention as he soars past, dodging attacks and swirling upwards, taking the high ground, twirling in the air before launching back down, straight through the building's wreckage, and twisting his thrusters around to absolutely decimate and decapitate the upper head portion of the Driller, if you can even call it a head, but regardless, killing it instantly and leaving it to crash in pieces to the streets below as Prime soars back up, landing and attempting to stabilize himself atop a skyscraper construction site. Enraged by the death of his pet, Shockwave launched up a multi-shot explosive, catching Optimus as he attempted to dodge to the side, a move that ended up sending him hurling through the construction site, leaving him to come out on the other side completely tangled and disoriented, dangling multiple stores in the air, covered in wires. Though luckily, the Wreckers spotted him and called out that they were inbound. At the same moment, Sentinel alerts the Decepticons around the world to activate the rest of the pillars, launching them into space as the space bridge technology begins starting up. Optimus remains trapped in the steel cables as the Wreckers climb to reach him, as the other Autobots are overpowered and captured on the ground, with the Decepticons gaining the clear advantage. To make matters worse, the pillars had activated, and Cybertron was slowly becoming more visible in the sky as it was gradually pulled across the galaxy into Earth's atmosphere. As the Wreckers gain progress in releasing Optimus, it seems as if it's already too late, as Dylan prompts Soundwave to begin the executions of the Autobot hostages, beginning with Wheeljack. The Decepticons laugh as they execute the prisoners of war, with Soundwave dragging Bumblebee through the corpse of his just murdered friend. Just as it appears B is about to meet the same fate, Brains and Wheelie, who had just commandeered a vessel and snuck aboard a Decepticon mothership, had successfully compromised the mainframe, causing dropships to crash and fall from the sky, providing the Autobot captives the diversion they needed to break free and reignite the fight. In the ensuing battle, Bumblebee's able to kill off Soundwave via a perfect uppercut blast through the chest, blowing his head clean off, with the humans initiating a tactical assault on Barricade, Shockwave, and a number of other Decepticons. The team is able to deal a good bit of damage to all of them, blinding most and crippling others, with a great deal of damage done especially to Shockwave, with the Wreckers seen driving in from behind, wink wink, with the rest of the Autobots arriving on scene, rallied by Sideswipe. Sentinel screams from atop the main building, "It's our world now!" Commence the transport, as Cybertron continues to grow larger and larger in the sky, with barely a sliver of the planet showing, and just that already near dwarfing the Earth. Just as it seems as it may finally be too late, Sam turns back, looking up at the sky to see a familiar paint scheme propelling off a building and inbound fast. Optimus soars into the battlefield, joining his Autobots, immediately swinging the odds back in their favor as the Decepticons were left completely off guard by the Autobot leader's sudden reemergence. Optimus hit the ground running, literally, never stopping his momentum as he hacked, slashed, and dodged his way through wave after wave of Decepticons, carving a path towards the still optically impaired but highly dangerous Shockwave, who rested at the base of Sentinel's main building, recovering. Optimus made it around the corner to Shockwave, perfectly diving to avoid a heavy shot from his gigantic arm cannon, springing forward and deploying his very own knuckle dusters and taking a chunk out of the Twisted Scientist's abdomen, stepping through and clocking the bumbling behemoth in the head, wrestling him down and telling the vile Decepticon to die, would finally end by severing his very eye-attached spinal cord. Without a tick wasted, knowing the destructive capability of Shockwave's cannon firsthand, Prime took advantage of it, turning it upwards towards the concrete columns enclosing the control pillar, blasting it down and immediately severing the ongoing transfer of Cybertron into the atmosphere, enraging Sentinel, who Optimus called out to from below. Sentinel draws his Primax blades, angrily retorting how Optimus forgets his place before jumping down to face his pupil, scowling as he says, "I brought you Cybertron, your home, and you still choose humanity," as he readied himself for battle. Optimus gathered himself, brushing Shockwave aside and readying his own armaments as he responded, "You were the one who taught me. Freedom is everyone's right," jumping forward to face his former master, turned greatest foe. Optimus's attack caught Sentinel off guard, blocking his axe thrust but allowing it to break his guard, allowing Prime to immediately follow up, skewering his shoulder and smashing Sentinel back into the building. Sentinel growled how he would re-trigger the pillar, which Optimus vowed he'd have to go through him. Sentinel was able to finally break free of Prime's grip with a headbutt front kick combo. As the duo continued to fight, the greater battle ensued around them between the Decepticon forces versus the Autobot and human resistance. As Optimus Prime continues to hold his ground against Sentinel, the older, honorless bot quickly tries to find a way out of the fight with an equal opponent, calling out for the Decepticon ships to focus fire on Optimus. We see there's a massive fleet of Decepticon ships who readily begin heading towards Sentinel's position, but luckily for the Autobots, the humans came through big time, with high-caliber missiles being directed inbound at the same time. As the Autobots continue to fight, B and Prime tangle with Sentinel as the humans on the ground get shots in where they can, careful to avoid the Autobots they had fought alongside with for so many years now. Sentinel knees Optimus out into the open, with the Prime barely dodging a stray front of Decepticon ships as the other Autobots desperately try to avoid Sentinel's Primax while trying to get any damage in they can. With Sentinel calling out for the Decepticons to reactivate the pillars, a message that seems only Dylan acknowledges. Optimus does his best to solo the airships, but succumbs to their barrage, being forced out of his cover and knocked into the open road. Thankfully, within seconds, the Predator missiles arrive and the humans help finally to clear the skies for the Autobots. It's here we see Carly notice Megatron propped up against a building, sitting out of the battle, content to just gaze up at his planet in the sky. Obviously, this is going to come back up in a moment. Despite Sam's attempt to stop him, Dylan re-triggers the command pillar, allowing Cybertron to continue its pull to Earth. Back in the main battle, Sentinel is quickly losing his advantage without his air support, fending off Sideswipe and B, but leaving himself open to a massive rocket launcher blast from one of Epps' homeboys. This blast is enough to send Sentinel scrambling on his heels, turning to flee across one of the canal bridges before being intercepted by Optimus, tackling the fleeing Sentinel out of his vehicle mode and slamming him into the side of the bridge. As the two exchanged blows with Sentinel blocking the good majority, he began taunting Prime, saying how he was the bravest of us, but you could never make the hardest decisions, as he dodged a few close strikes before staggering Optimus with his shield, jumping, spinning, and slashing to gain some space. Sentinel continued speaking as he knocked Optimus's axe from one hand, declaring our planet will survive, delivering a powerful kick to Optimus's sword hand, bringing him to his knees before stabbing him right through the shoulder socket, completely slicing off his arm. As Optimus grabbed in pain, Sentinel backhanded him with his shield, stabbing him through the back once again, dragging him along the bridge wall. Continuing his spiel from earlier about how they were gods once, as Optimus could only beg, this time Sentinel says how they were all gods, but here there will be only one, as he prepares to execute Optimus once and for all. In this moment, Optimus is purely left to think that he has just handed over Earth in its entirety to Sentinel's oppression, who just solidified his intent to enslave and rule both worlds. But of course, before the killing blow can be dealt, Sentinel is shot from behind as Megatron sprints onto the scene. He proceeds to deliver 2 more critical shotgun blasts before using his massive clawed hand to ragdoll the corrupt Prime, snarling, "This is my planet," as Optimus crawls away. Megatron continues to gut Sentinel, knocking off his helmet and ripping chunks from his torso, as the Autobots elsewhere finally successfully take the control pillar offline for good. A result that sends a ripple effect back through all the other pillars, causing both the partial Cybertron to capsize back in on itself, almost like a black hole, also snaring all the Decepticon ships and warriors which had been tied to the space bridge's properties after using them to get to Earth. As the 3 leaders on the bridge process what was unfolding in the sky, Megatron spoke out in displeasure, asking Optimus for a truce as he discarded Sentinel to the side, but then immediately contradicting himself and showing his true hand by asserting all he wants is to be back in charge, continuing, "Besides, who would you be without me, Prime?" We see Optimus, focused as ever, declaring, "Time to find out," activating his battle mask and surging forward with new energy, having a brief respite. Without giving Megatron a chance to get a shot off, Prime quickly grabs his axe off the ground, flinging it up and letting it find a home in the center of Megatron's chest, using its momentum to swing past the Decepticon while kicking his leg out from behind and swinging his axe around over his back to set up the perfect angle to hook the area he had previously blasted off in Egypt, heaving the great Decepticon back and fully beheading his great foe, ending him once and for all. As Prime steps past his defeated nemesis, he looks to Sentinel, who now decides to play the sympathy card. "Optimus," he says, "all I ever wanted was the survival of our race. You must see why I had to betray you." To which Optimus replies, "You didn't betray me, you betrayed yourself," before delivering 2 final shots to his old master. Prime looks on solemnly, and despite the triumphant beat that begins, Prime shows no celebration in the moment. People take issue with his double kill here, and again, like the previous 2 defenses to his killings, why are we taking sympathy with Megatron and Sentinel here, who proved to be just as bad, if not worse? Megatron has proven time and time again he would seize power when he could, and had a truly insatiable appetite for domination. And even Sentinel, who had just revealed moments before, right before he was going to execute Optimus, he expressed how his master plan was not only the complete enslavement and conquering of Earth, but also the subjugation of the rest of the Cybertronians as a single god to rule them all. Like the Fallen, for the safety of Earth and the preservation of the endangered Cybertronians, these dictatorial warmongers needed to go. And with that, we have finally reached the end of Transformers: Dark of the Moon. The Autobots and humans gather, mourning the loss of the city but celebrating the greater victory in defense of the greater Earth. Optimus caps it off with another iconic speech, saying how, in any war, there are calms between storms. There will be days when we lose faith, days when our allies turn against us, but the day will never come where we forsake this planet and its people. Again, after all that, Prime still stands in line with his truest code. In conclusion, I will not drag this video out any longer than I have to, but I just want to say thank you for making it this far if you have, and if you have, I want to know, so go down below and comment Heart of a Prime, just so I could see who really did make it this far. But anyway, I hope I've made at least a case to those of you who fall on the more critical side of the fence when analyzing Michael Bay's incarnation of Optimus Prime. I urge you all to do a rewatch of the first three, keeping in mind the tribulations Optimus endures, the friends he loses, and his unwavering dedication to his classic ideals despite the opposition, and this being a realistic take. While he certainly was not the perfect model citizen we were first introduced to in G1, this is a perfectly fitting representation of the character, shaped by millions of years of bitter conflict, being cast out, sacrificing his life and being born again, and still remaining optimistic and remaining true to his values of defending the right for all sentient life to decide their futures for themselves. With the ease the term psychopath is thrown around when discussing this character, I've simply had enough of sitting by and observing the slander. Overblown and unnecessary. At the end of the day, it's a disservice to judge a multi-million-year-old, hyper-advanced, sentient alien race, in the thralls of a civil war by the way, by the morality standards that we observe as humans. It's impossible to truly empathize with the perspective this alien robot who has seen his homeland and brethren slaughtered over the course of thousands of millennia. Where one could easily dismiss Prime's actions as cruel or excessive, a deeper examination could just as easily advocate for the pragmatism of his choices or actions as a reflection of a war-hardened, broken hero who adapts to survive and defend. But with that, that's about all I have to say in my position of why Michael Bay's Optimus Prime is a justified psychopath. If you like this video and you want to see a part 2 where I cover Age of Extinction, we'll not be touching The Last Knight because that is a absolute dumpster fire. There's nothing good about that. But if you want to see me talk about The Last Knight, I am happily prepared to do a defense of that in, not The Last Knight, in Age of Extinction as well, as that film dives into the most complex emotional state that we see Prime in yet, and his relationship specifically with humanity, but that is a possibility for another day. But let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. Likes, dislikes, anything is appreciated, and until next time, peace.